I'm going to call this hearing to order. My name is Sarah Hulak. I'm one of the attorneys here at the Nebraska Department of Education. We are here today for the proposed revisions of Title 92, Nebraska Administrative Code, Chapter 92, regulations governing the minimum equipment standards and safety inspection criteria for pupil transportation vehicles. The legal notice of this hearing was published in the Omaha World Herald on October 27th of 2018. We are currently in the State Board meeting room at the Nebraska Department of Education, 301 Centennial Mall South, 6th floor, Lincoln, Nebraska. It is Wednesday, November 28th, 2018. It is 9 a.m. I will now read the guidelines for the testimony for anybody wanting to testify. The Nebraska Department of Education staff member Bryce Wilson will describe and explain the proposed rule. This will be followed by testimony by any interested persons. Each person presenting written or oral testimony is requested to state a concise suggestion or recommendation of what action you would like the board to take, state the rationale or reason for your recommendation. You may reinforce, but please refrain from repeating previous testimony. Each person testifying will be limited to 5 minutes. If additional time is needed, it may be provided at my discretion. At the conclusion of all testimony from interested persons, Mr. Wilson will have the opportunity to respond to the testimony presented today, and that will conclude all testimony. The testimony presented will be recorded, and the audio recording will be made available to the State Board of Education and the public via YouTube at the time the State Board considers the adoption of this rule, which will be December 7th, 2018. All written testimony must be submitted to the hearing official prior to the end of the business today at 5 p.m. in order to be made part of the record of this hearing. Mr. Wilson, please provide a description and explanation of the proposed rule.
Good morning. Rule 92 was a collaborative process with the Nebraska Department of Education staff and a revision committee composed of superintendents from small to mid-sized school districts, transportation directors from large school districts, level instructors, school bus vendors, representatives of the Nebraska Safety Center, and other interested parties that communicated with us throughout the rule revision process. Rule 92 identifies school bus and small vehicle specifications along with an 80-day inspection process for pupil transportation vehicles. Rule 92 was updated to reflect the 2015 national recommendations for school bus specifications, which are reviewed and approved by the National Congress on School Transportation on a 5-year cycle. The National Congress on School Transportation is composed of representatives from each state along with technical experts that manufacture buses. The proposed revisions of Rule 92 use the inspection criteria included in the national recommendations. The Nebraska currently maintains its own inspection criteria. I'm going to quickly go through a list of very technical changes that are being proposed in this revision to Rule 92. A lot of these are to align with the national standards. A couple of them are not necessarily to align with national standards. Ones for or changes proposed to align with national standards include changes to the aisles, the body size, brakes, bumpers, certification, clutch, color, construction, cooling systems, defrosters, doors, electrical systems, exhaust systems, fenders, fuel tanks, fuel alternatives, governor requirements, handrails, heating systems, the identification on the school buses, instruments and instrument panel requirements, interior requirements, passenger load requirements, seat and restraining barriers to align with national requirements, tires, rims, transmission, undercoating, windows, passenger capacity, power lifts and ramps, regular service entrances, restraining devices, seating arrangements, wheelchair tie-down and occupant restraint systems, support equipment and accessories are all different categories of changes that are being proposed to align with national standards. A big change that we're also using or making in this rule requirement is to define better what a motor coach definition is, or how that is defined, to say that it has to be a gross vehicle weight of greater than 33,000 pounds with a semi-monocoque / monocoque unitized body construction and is designed to seat at least 32 passengers. We deleted the front door only and no rear emergency exit requirements. Those are not the national standards. That is a a Nebraska-specific language change there to define the motor coach. And then the other big thing that I mentioned already was that we are proposing to adopt the inspection criteria that is the national recommendations, as opposed to maintaining our own inspection criteria. So those are the big changes that are being proposed for Rule 92.
Thank you, Bryce. Are there any other interested persons that would like to testify? If so, when you do come up, please make sure that you sign in, and I believe Bryce has another comment.
So I am going to submit the list of changes that I just very quickly summarized for as an exhibit, so that can be on record with a little more explanation on all those changes, just for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Any other interested persons wanting to testify today?
Good morning. My name is Dean Carroll, and I'm a general manager of Mid-State School Bus out of Wayne, Nebraska. I'm here to ask that no changes be made to Rule 92. No, I don't have the right rule here because I got 002.04 concerning the definition of a motor coach. It has been stated in past testimony that motor coach transportation has been one of the most robust forms of transportation for activities in the state of Nebraska. I think that everyone can agree, students, coaches, and drivers, all much more comfortable in this type of bus versus a standard yellow bus. It has also been stated that until recently, dealers have respected the intent of the definition of a motor coach. The reason for this is that this new type of shuttle coach has only become available in the past couple of years. It was engineered and designed to replicate the motor coach, but at a much more reasonable price. Notice I did not say cheaper, because that could be construed to mean a shuttle coach is substandard in construction in comparison to a motor coach. Testimony has also stated the body structure needs to change to be of unitized construction and not body on frame. There are thousands of students that are transported daily in body on frame yellow and white buses every single day. Your Type A bus, which is your smaller buses on a GM or Ford chassis, those are all body on frame. I visited with a couple of my vendors, and I'm under the assumption that your Type B and C school buses are also body on frame. And those are your larger school buses that have the hood in front, not your transit style. And I think that's probably 85% of the buses in the state of Nebraska are the Type A, B, or C. And we transport drive thousands of miles, and that particular construction has seemed to do well for all the schools. I have not heard the testimony on why a shuttle coach is not a viable option for student transportation, just that there needs to be the change to the definition. I did hear a member of the Rules Committee has suggested a terminology change because it was his interpretation. I might add that part of his business is selling coach buses, with a shuttle coach priced comparably to a 10-year-old motor coach. With over 500,000 miles, one can see why you'd want this change. This month was a state school board conference, and there are many schools interested in purchasing these shuttle coaches. With a recent vote of accepting Initiative 427 and the state coming up with an additional $100 million, school budgets are only going to get tighter, with state aid becoming less. Just like a 10-year-old car, these 10-year-old motor coaches will nickel and dime you, except the motor coach, it is by the thousands, and that is money schools can't afford. While recently talking to the superintendent, he spent $80,000 in repairs on his motor coach in a 12-month period. Another superintendent will not be replacing her motor coach with another used one, but instead will opt for a yellow bus. Both of these schools could have purchased a shuttle coach with factory warranty and not worry about if the motor coach would make it back home from the game. There's hardly a school I have talked to who's not happy with their current motor coach. It is a running joke on whether or not the bus will make it back home after a game or a field trip. I'm sure there are some schools that are happy with what they have, but they've also spent 2 or 3 times the money on their bus. There are several companies in Nebraska that don't want the shuttle coach sold in Nebraska, and in my opinion only, has nothing to do about safety of said shuttle coach, but how it affects them financially. I've been told that the Department of Education would like to see a shuttle coach go through a crash test. Please let me know what type of test they would like to have done, and I will pass that along to the appropriate people. I also wanted on record that shuttle coaches are stamped by the federal government as meeting their FMVSS standards. And FMVSS stands for Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards. And these are standards that are based on design, construction, performance, and durability. These buses are allowed to transport college students in the state of Nebraska, but not students in any school districts in Nebraska. There are large transportation companies similar to Arrow and Navigator that utilize these buses to transport children, adults, and seniors every day, yet our schools are being penalized if this definition is changed. I did add that gross vehicle weight has been proposed to be over 33,000 pounds. And visiting with my dealer, that also adds a gas guzzler tax. If that particular portion of the change goes into effect, that would cost the schools an additional $20,000 to $30,000 if down the road the shuttle coach is allowed to transport students in the state of Nebraska. Because of this, I'm asking the Department of Ed to not make any changes to the definition of a coach bus or add a shuttle coach as an option along with the coach bus. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll.
If I could too, afterwards, if I could have a copy, I'll give it to you, then also a brochure of the said shuttle coach.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Are there any other interested persons that would like to testify today? Seeing none, I would invite Mr. Wilson to come back up for any additional testimony.
So NDE did consider the shuttle coaches and was aware of those as an option for school districts. At this time, there's not a lot of information out there, as they're a relatively new option for school districts. As far as other states that are using them, it's limited at other states that have used them, and also just crash test requirements and other safety requirements. And our take on that would be that as more information becomes available, those might become a very good option for the state of Nebraska, but at this time we're just not comfortable allowing those under rule until we get more information. So in some states, motor coaches aren't allowed at all. In our state, we do allow motor coaches, as those have a lot more history and information on safety requirements for those. So.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. With that, I will close the testimony for the hearing. Thank you.